What's up, everybody? Welcome to another video. Now, I want to issue my condolence to those families of the people that lost their lives in the two mass shootings that have happened in America in the space of 1 week. Yes, there was another mass shooting, but this time around, not in Atlanta, Georgia, but in Colorado. A man walks into a store in Boulder, a grocery store, and shoots up about 10 people. Now, the man was carried away, and honestly speaking, I felt like this was a period in time where people in America should come together, in unison and maybe bipartisanship when it comes to party-wise or what have you, or political opinion, and actually reflect on this particular situation, offer their condolences to the people that lost their families in the shooting, find out who they are and what have you. But this is not how people from the woke left are thinking. For them, it was a perfect opportunity to push their political agendas or their political opinion, depending on what side of the aisle they are. Imagine when CNN was going to describe the man that carried out the shooting, the first thing they mentioned was that it was a white man.
We know that the suspect is in custody. He was injured. They have not released any details about who he was, but we did see footage of a white man. He was wearing shorts, no shoes, no shirt. He seemed to be bleeding down his leg, and he was handcuffed.
CNN were not the only people that tried to push this white rhetoric. If you check out MSNBC, they talked about this guy like as if he's some white maniac, like as if he's some white supremacist that was actually carrying out a white supremacist killing. Now, many of them are coming out looking like eggs on their faces, but they are not letting out. If you go on Twitter, instead of seeing people mourning or offering condolences, it is either one political opinion or the other. And it is absolutely absurd. It is absolutely disgusting, the behavior of these wokesters on Twitter. Or as one of you guys said in the comment, woke TVists, shout out to you, Nnamdi. These woke TVists would never let out. It is amazing how they described it. Imagine how one of these former financial guru called Amy Siskin described the whole incident. She said the shooter was taken into custody. In other words, it was almost certainly a white man. Again, it was almost certainly a white man. How do you even know before the fact? If he were black or brown, he would be dead. In other words, she was making two statements saying that white people have this privilege, they can do these things and they can get away with it, and that if it was a black or a brown person, that person would definitely have been taken down. Mina Harris. Now, the surname might be familiar to you as she bears the same surname as a certain vice president that we know, Kamala Harris. Now, Mina Harris is Kamala Harris's niece, and this is how she decided to describe the incident, or this is her own take on the incident. The Atlanta shooting was not even a week ago. Violent white men are the greatest terrorist threats to our country. The funniest thing is that these people who are making this claim are also whites themselves, and it is amazing that they keep on pushing this rhetoric. Now, like I said before, I don't know where they are trying to head with this, but I do know the effect that things like this cause. It causes a lot of division, and this is how these wokesters continue to think. Now, once again, they jumped the gun. Remember last week, they said that the shooter was, committing a hate crime, and then it turns out that the guy was delusional and that he was a sex addict and he was trying to cure himself of his sex addiction, being that he comes from a background that is wrong to them. But anyway, let's find out about this particular shooter, and then let's find out the response that these two people, amongst many others, because I don't want to read so many of these Twitter accounts, I just wanted to focus on these key ones because they all follow the same pattern. So who is this shooter actually? Who is this white supremacist? Well, his name happens to be Ahmed Aliwi Alyssa. This guy was a Syrian who was brought to America 21. He is 21 years old, and there has been so many reports. One of the reports shows that he was actually known to the FBI because of the association he has with somebody else who has been on the FBI radar. Another thing was that this is one of the guys who actually is far from maybe a Trump supporter, because that was what some people were trying to pit him as another white supremacist Trump supporter who did another mass shooting, not even trying to find out this time around if the people that were shot were whites themselves or some of them were not whites. Who knows? They just wanted to attribute it to white supremacists. Now, it doesn't really make any sense for somebody, a non-white person like this, to be killing white people and happens to be a white supremacist. Matter of fact, his social media postings actually follows the opinion opinion columns of CNN and the major opinionated shows of CNN. So this guy has been a more or less maybe a woke follower, or maybe somebody who follows the patterns of the progressive left, of course, from his social media posts. Not only that, this guy is somebody who considers himself as an oppressed human being. And back in high school, his schoolmates said that, back in high school, he always claimed that if anybody did something against him, that he was going to file in a hate crime. Now, where would he have gotten the idea that he was oppressed from? Obviously from these wokesters, because majority of them, they always stand by this critical race theory that says every non-white person is oppressed, that every non-white person is a victim. The thing is, these people will let and stop at nothing but to keep on pushing the same agenda and say that white supremacist is still responsible for the shooting. Regardless of the fact that we know that this guy is Syrian, imagine the sort of response that these people that I mentioned initially actually gave after finding out that this guy isn't white. Amy Siskin had this to say. She said, "Let's mourn the victims, but not glorify the killer with the attention of having his name widely known." Why? Because they don't want people to know that this guy is an Arab. They want people to think that he's white because obviously he looks white. He's pale in complexion, he lacks melanin. So, we can pass him off as a white supremacist. What matters right now is not that 10 people just died, but what matters right now is that we push that message across that this is white supremacist. Now, I can understand when people from, the political aisle want to use this for their personal political gain. People like Obama coming out to push for gun controls, something he couldn't do when he was president, but is now pushing for it, that they need to do it. I can understand him and where he's coming from. But people like this, I have no clue. People like this, people like Amy Siskin, people like Mina Harris, and many of these blue checkmark, I have no idea what they are trying to push. Imagine this other lady, Mina Harris. She says, "The Atlanta shooting was not even a week ago. Violent white men are the greatest terrorist threat to our country." Now, when she found out that this person is an Arab, what she responded with was, "I deleted a previous tweet about the suspect in Boulder shooting. I made an assumption based on his being taken into custody alive and the fact that the majority of mass shootings in the US are carried out by white men." Based on what studies? Now, I can agree that in the past, majority of the shootings may have been carried out by white men, but these were high-profile shootings that actually has some political connotations attached to them. But when it comes to mass shooting in general, oh boy, when you actually dig through the statistics, you will be finding out something totally different. Now, according to CFI, that is the Center for Information. Now, informations are gathered from all over. We are talking about FBI information, we're talking about media information from Washington Post, from New York Post, and what have you. Many of these informations are gathered together about mass shooting, and your jaws will be ajar when you actually find out the truth about what really goes on with all this mass shooting, and some of them that actually misses major media coverage because it doesn't fit the narrative. Now, according to the CFI, Center for Information, they said a new analysis of 358 mass shootings in America in 2015 found that there are 3/4 of victims whose race could be identified were black. 3/4 were black out of 358 mass shootings. That's nearly 300 of them were blacks. Now, roughly a third of the incidents with known circumstances have drive-by shootings or were identified by law enforcement as gang-related. These things never make the news. You want to know why? Because it's black on black crime, and because it doesn't fit the narrative. It doesn't fit the narrative of CNN to actually announce or talk about black on black crime, because those black lives do not matter. Now, another third were sparked by arguments, often amongst people who were drunk or high. The analysis conducted by the New York Times, like I said before, with data collected by Reddit's mass shooting tracker and gun violence archive, used law enforcement reports on shootings and left 4 or more people injured or dead in 2015. Few of the incidents resemble the kinds of planned massacres in schools, churches, and movie theaters that have attracted intense media and political attention. A few of them look like that, but they never make the news because it's usually black on black. Now, it said instead, the analysis defined purely by numbers of victims injured revealed that many part of the border of everyday gun violence on economic struggling neighborhood, many gang related, or many are gang related. Now, basically what this is saying is that majority of the mass shootings are occurring in areas where the economy is very, very bad. In other words, in area where people are fighting poverty or something like that. You know, the lower echelons of life, you know, the inner cities and what have you. These are the places that most or majority of these mass shootings have been occurring. Now, another study shows that on the 25 mass shootings in gun violence database for January 2019, 16%, at least 4 of them, were committed by white males. 4%, that is one of those committed, was committed by a Hispanic man. Now, 64%, which is 16 of those mass shootings, were committed by African Americans. And in 16% of the cases, the attackers were unknown. As described by Friedel, most of these incidents fell into the felony and familicide categories. They will never ever talk about this. Once again, showing that African Americans are the people that actually carry out mass shootings the most. But does that stop people like Amy Siskind from actually pushing this same rhetoric? She is really popular in the progressive sectors and in the progressive lines or the progressive echo chambers on Twitter these days. She's very, very popular in that realm. Now, Mina Harris as well. Imagine her correction saying that she was still basing this on fact. Meanwhile, she didn't even bother to confirm whether what she was saying is fact. Let's go on. There are more information. Now, last week we talked about these people blaming, you know, the deaths of those Asians and those white people that also died in the midst of the whole thing on white supremacists once again, and saying that white people were generally the people that carries out most hate crimes on Asian. I will be leaving a link to these articles that I am bringing this information so that you can check it out yourself and find out there are so many things that are not being revealed to the public. So, in New York City, where anti-Asian hate crime soared nearly 9-fold in 2020 over the year before, only 2 of the 20 people arrested last year in connection with these attacks were white. According to New York Police Department, data analyzed by Center for Study of Hate and Extremism, 11 were African Americans, 6 were Hispanics, and 1 was a black Hispanic. Now, the reason why I'm talking about this is because there is this hardcore movement from the woke left against white people, and this is not solving the problem. This is not bringing people together, because the problem here is this: if you have a race that is actually committing the same amount of crime as another race, but they are left unchecked, they're not being talked about, people aren't pushing this thing, and even anybody that tries to speak of it would be brandished or branded as a white racist or a white supremacist sympathizer or a coon or a sellout or what have you. When you continue to do that, what you are doing is you are encouraging those race to continue to do what they are doing, and this is why the results is so bad, because nobody's really standing up and saying, look, people need to start taking responsibilities for their action, no matter what color that you are. And people need to be able to chastise people regardless of the colors that they are. If somebody has done something, focus on that person. Don't focus on the race. Focus on the individual that committed that crime, not generally the race, because now they are race baiting. They are pushing some race agenda against white people, against whiteness, but the people that are actually suffering from this thing are the non-whites regardless. So this makes me think that most of these people that keep on pushing this ideology are white supremacists themselves and are trying to protect the whiteness itself by kind of like giving you some kind of a reverse psychology, pushing the idea that, oh, we are against whiteness, so you guys should be against whiteness. Oh, by the way, mathematics is part of whiteness, so rejected black people. Don't learn about maths. Don't learn about professionalism because it is evil. It is attributed to white people. My, oh my, every single thing that could bring you success, don't learn about it. Wall Street, white supremacist. Nuclear family, white supremacist. This is the ideology I see, that this is the result of the ideology that they keep on pushing. They are actually teaching more people to be racist than actually bringing people together. It is very, very divisive, and we can see it from the street. Now, before I leave, I will want to conclude with this. I love what they said in this article from Center for Information, which I said I would leave the link in the description section below so that you can read, because there is a lot of information. That same pattern I told you about what happened in New York, whereby, you know, the anti-Asian hate crimes were mostly African Americans. Similar results were gotten when they carried out the same research in California, in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, in Seattle. It was the same result. There were more black causing anti-Asian hate crimes than any other race, needs to be said. Anyway, the article concludes with this, generally summarizing everything. It says there is no single accurate profile of a mass shooter. It really depends on what type of mass shooting you're talking about. Several of these high-profile mass shootings in recent memories, you know, the rare public mass killing categories, were committed by white male. Of course, like I said before, majority of the ones that are high-profile that actually makes the news were committed by white male because it actually supports their narrative. Now, I said, such as the 2017 Las Vegas attack by Stephen Paddock. We know about that. Of course, that guy was also delusional. I think he committed suicide at the end of the day. Then he said, but beyond that, the stereotype breaks down. Muslim man Omar Martin killed 49 people at Florida nightclub in 2016. They don't talk much about that. I'm not saying that they didn't speak about it at all, but they don't talk much about that. On behalf of the terrorist group, now, it also says white male Adam Lanza killed 27 people in 2012 at an elementary school. Though Asian student Hugh Cho, I might have murdered that name, killed 32 people on Virginia Tech campus in 2007, and so on and so forth. So you've got white people doing this mass shooting, you've got Asian people doing this mass shooting, you've got you know, Arab people doing this mass shooting. Mass shooting can occur from anywhere at any time, and this particular study also talks about how majority of these people are delusional or they're psychopaths. They've had a mental problem, and so these are things that should be focused on rather than actually trying to focus on the color of the person that created or caused this mass shooting. It doesn't matter what the color of the person is. To me, what matters right now are those people, family, who lost their life. You would think that many of these rich people sitting on their ass in some kind of a mansion tweeting all this bull crap would actually say, hey people, those that lost their life, let's find a way to console their families, let's find a way to support their families, let's raise funds to actually help these families out. But this isn't their key thing. This isn't what they are talking about. This isn't what they are pushing. Now, left to me, when it comes to the constant attacking of these white people and for whatever agenda they want to achieve, where they continue to push this ideology of systemic racism, white supremacist, and what have you. Now, I am seriously against both of the things that I've mentioned, but in the context in which it is being mentioned by this woke TVs, it doesn't really apply. But they want to push that ideology towards everybody anyway. But anyway, you guys, I can go on and on about this for hours, but I want to hear what you guys have to say about this whole thing. Let me know what you think about this woke TVs and the agendas that they are pushing on the internet and the mental gymnastics that they are kind of trying to do these days in trying to correlate every single evil thing that happens and correlate it to white supremacists and say that, oh, white people were responsible and what have you. Let me know in that comment section below. I want to thank you guys for watching this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe, and, you know, do all those beautiful things for your brother. I really massively appreciate it. Once again, my condolences goes out to the people that have lost their families in this whole ordeal, both this week and last week. You know, the two things that happened in the space of a week. And yeah, I will be catching you guys real soon. Have a great weekend ahead. Peace and sayas out. Catch you guys on the next one.